Hey folks, come on in, come on in. I am back. This is a new episode of Yepping with the Stars. So I'm not gonna lie. Well, what did I just do? Okay, I am not gonna lie. A bitch is tired. A bitch is tired. How are y'all feeling out there? How is your energy level? Right? How has your ability to actually follow through with stuff been the last few days? Let me tell you something right now. I am dragging ass. Last week I wasn't online because I had done a bunch of in-person things, and then my body said you gotta chill. So I don't know if I had a cold or it wasn't COVID because I did test, but I don't know what the hell it was, but it took me out. And so I thought, okay, well, maybe this is just, the energy of the working I've been doing. I'm talking about how I've been doing this 31-day working as a way to kind of close out this 2025 and welcome in the new kind of Gregorian year of 2026, right? And in that kind of working, y'all, I have been asking and calling in ease because I'm tired of of feeling as if my life is one in which I have to always be in a hustle and grind, right? And again, a lot of us who are older millennials definitely know this feeling of always feeling like you have to be on, have to be hustling, have to be doing something. And, it's a finite thing in the body. So I was like, fuck it, what would it look like if I actually entered into ease? But the more I call in ease, y'all, the more exhaustion comes up to play. Because again, it is my ease that has the ability to have the sympathy for my exhaustion that I have no idea how to make room for except to ignore and keep going, right? There's a way that when we become exhausted in these very productive systems that we think the exhaustion is a good thing in a weird way because it means we're doing something, right? And that can be a drug in itself. That can be something we're chasing, even as we are realizing we need to move away from it. So, why am I saying all this? This is very Neptunian. Neptune has been doing some work, y'all. Neptune's been doing some work for a while. And last week, Neptune went direct in the sign of Pisces. And Neptune in Pisces has been there for the past 14 years. I want you to think for the past 14 years, okay? Think the past 14 years and look at the house that Pisces rules for you if you know how to run your chart. That's the place in which for 14 years there has been some delusions, there has been some fog, there has been some types of stories you have told yourself that now are being asked to be reviewed. They're at a critical point. There's a way that Neptune now at 29 degrees direct before it makes its way into Aries for the next 12 to 14 years, right? Starting in February. What we are being shown right now are the ways that not only do we lie to ourselves, but we believe those lies. We buy into the kind of ideology, the dogma, the rhetoric, right, that allows us to feel absolved from actually believing ourselves, for making a choice, for being responsible for the next iteration of our lives. So I'm realizing that if I don't talk to my exhaustion, if I tell the story of exhaustion to myself that is filtered through the lens of a society, of a religion, quite frankly, of a dogma that requires my dehumanization, but it requires me to give consent to it. It requires me to remove myself from this body so that I'm always chasing that ephemeral afterlife, whatever that afterlife is, whether it be the future that I'm always aiming for, or if I believe that I'll find my glory once I leave this body and go to heaven, whatever it is. When I ignore the exhaustion, I want you to ask yourselves, especially right now, what you feel it and what do you ignore? Then I'm ignoring my own spirit. I am denying my spirit, my sense of self, right? My God, in favor of the God external to me. That God being what society has said, right? What I have digested, what I have constructed as my narrative. But in actuality, my body's telling me that's not the narrative for me, right? Exhaustion, as one example of a feeling that can't go away, is there because it is loving. It is saying, baby, this is not sustainable. So, what would it look like to actually give yourself what you need, which is rest, right? Which is recuperation, which is reflection. Reflection. The cosmos reminds us of the importance of reflection all the time with the retrogrades that we have to go through, right? Every planet except the luminaries retrogrades because every parts of our lives need reflection. It's not about a timeline in which the forward movement of numbers that we have designated as the indication that somehow we are progressing, right? The illusion of time and the way in which we ascribe meaning to time and numbers itself. That does not mean that we are going anywhere. We can be still stagnant, right? Reproducing the same stuff. So we have to reflect. We have to review. And part of the reflection and reviewing is feeling, is assessing. It's sitting and allowing time almost to feel as if, excuse me, it feel as if it is allow time to feel as if it is stagnant sometimes. And that's what we're in right now, y'all. That's what we're in. So that long intro is really the kind of energy that we've all had to kind of swim in. Neptune is dissolving things. Neptune in Pisces dissolves. It is in the deep waters and in its home. And everything that has gone through Neptune, especially this past year or two, right, as Neptune has made it in its last degrees of Pisces, and particularly because Saturn has been there hanging out with Neptune off and on for the past year in close proximity, and will be completely conjunct in Aries next February. There's a dissolving of structures, y'all. There's a dissolving of the boundaries. There's a dissolving of the ways that the collective has brought into stories, the myths, the illusions. There's just a dissolving of the ways we understand faith and the authority we place into them. And so this hits all aspects of our lives, from our relationships and love and justice to our passions and our strategy and what we go to war for, right? What we believe in, what we're attracted to, the ways we communicate, the ways we believe, right? Our understandings of systems, of governance, all of these things have been dissolving, have been cracking, have been literally laying waste at our feet. And so what we have now then is this new moon coming up in Sagittarius. We have a new moon at the end of this week, the 20th to be exact. And this new moon is going to be again at 28 degrees. All the new moons since Libra have been at 28 degrees. Again, 28 being the degree of Cancer. And so there's a new beginning we're being asked to construct. But in what way? And when we're still talking about Cancerian themes, we're still talking about family and nurturing and mothering and also women's bodies, right? There's a new beginning we're having to assess around women's bodies, around femmes, around the idea of the anatomy, right? That has very much been denied any kind of rigor, any kind of analysis, any kind of ability to take seriously, right, the feminine body. We are having to do a re-examination of all of this. And we're seeing this honestly in the public. We're seeing kind of pushback against the lack of research done around women's health, especially in middle age, right? As a 44-year-old woman, I'm constantly now on the search for information about hormone replacement therapy and like perimenopause. And I don't know why the fuck I'm itching in random places. I'm like, why is my head itching like crazy? Why is my vagina itching randomly like crazy? Go to the doctor, everything's fine, they say, right? Like my weight's fluctuating, my emotions go up and down, right? More than kind of normal sometimes, whatever normal the fuck normal means. But I can feel my body changing, right? And when I talk to other women around my age, and especially those who are older, and I'm really grateful, even though some of them are fucked up, I'm really grateful for the older Black women in my life, in my 30s, who would talk about their change, who would talk about being in their late 40s, early 50s, and what their bodies went through. I remember my mother, when I was in high school, going through her change, right? And being the dead of winter in Chicago. And in Chicago right now, it is cold as fuck. And this reminded me back of my childhood. This is literally a winter from when I grew up. The cold, the frigid, the dropping of temperatures, the snow dropping. It would be this kind of weather. My mom would have the fucking windows open with a goddamn fan in there because she is so hot and sweating. And all I can hear my dad say is, Rosie, you're freezing me, right? And then her inability to truly work with her emotions, right? The blowing up, and now I can understand it. Now, as a 44-year-old woman, I can understand it. I have a lot more sympathy, right? I have a lot more sympathy for her, even though she couldn't have it for herself because she didn't know how to have it for herself. Right? So I can have it for her, but if I can have it for her, I got to have it for myself now. That's the lesson we're learning. So 28 degrees in the new moon in Sag. So what is Sag? Sag is the guru, is the teacher, is the philosopher, is the one who learns through experience, ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter, the planet of expansion. We talk about Jupiter a lot in this show, right? I agree, Shay, right? It is a beast. Science has done nothing much for women but snatch our parts. Exactly. Science has used the woman's body. Let's talk about Henrietta Lack, right? Science experiments on the woman's body, especially the Black woman's body, but yet we are seen not as useful, as disposable, as an outlier. And so these outlyings, these philosophies, going back to Sag, the teacher, the philosopher, we're going to start questioning. We need to start questioning what is even considered good science, what is considered good information, what is considered pertinent, what's even considered genius. That full moon we just had that I talked about, 2 weeks ago in Gemini, was the illumination around understandings of knowledge and systems of knowing, right? The facts of things, and illuminating and attention and an opposition to the sun in Sagittarius, right? The tensions we have about who we are looking to for information and why. There is a cracking at the foundations of faith in knowledge. Now we are being asked to construct new knowledges, right? If we understand that the ways of knowing and learning have only led us into a more authoritarian state, and we are seeing the impact of this right now, y'all. We are seeing this on the online discourse. We are seeing this in the circle jerking of conversations. I'm going to get to Jasmine Crockett in this whole Senate conversation in a minute. This is a perfect example of this shit, right? We are seeing the circular logic that keeps us in binary thinking, because that is the way that the colonial project has maintained itself. Well, what we are being asked to do is assess the locations that we have given our knowledge up to. We are not only our authority, but our faith. When you give your head up, y'all, you give up your faith. When you don't believe yourself, right? When you don't believe something like an exhaustion, you give up your sense of self. You become a willing vessel. You become a willing offering to the thing you say you are pushing back against. So we're having to reevaluate even what it means to have justice, right? What does it mean to create just systems, to create structures that do not replicate, but actually allow us to create something completely new? Do we even know what new is? Well, now we're having this big conversation about structure, because this new moon is right next to Venus. Venus is going to be 4 degrees or 24 degrees in Sagittarius, so 4 degrees away from this new moon. And on the other side of the new moon, over in Capricorn, will be Mars at 3 degrees. Mars moves into Capricorn tomorrow on Monday, the 15th. So this kind of 14 today, in which I talked about at the very beginning, this exhaustion and Neptune and feeling your body, this really is because Mars is in a square to Neptune today. Mars at 29 degrees is squaring Neptune 29 degrees. It's a criticalness, right? This is a facing of the kind of illusions, right? This is a need to look into spirit, a need to ask ourselves where we are denying ourselves the ability to believe the self, right? Because Mars is irritation. If you're irritated, what is it saying to you? My irritation talks to me a lot as a Mars ruled person. And so now I'm realizing I have to believe that as well. Now I'm learning not only to believe my exhaustion, but also my irritation. And now when those two motherfuckers talk to each other, my exhaustion, my irritation is telling me it is irritated because I'm so exhausted, but I won't listen to it. And then I have to ask myself, then what does it mean to listen? And that's where the truth comes out. I'm not sure. So Neptune squares Mars is also helping us figure out where we need more information, right? Where we're figuring out that the idea that we know something, maybe that's the lie. Maybe we got to figure out what it means to ask for help. Maybe we have to figure out what it means to take these ideas, right? To take the concepts that we are learning and actually put it into action. Mars will be going into Capricorn. At the same time, we have this new moon. And this is Mars is beginning this going to be very intense conversation in Capricorn coming up as we move into Capricorn season. Because in January, we're going to have this massive conglomeration of inner planets being Mercury, Venus, and Mars, right alongside the luminaries, Sun and Moon. We're going to be having all this information, all of this energy in Capricorn, then Aquarius, then Pisces and Aries. So we're having this concentration at the very end of the zodiac signs as we move into a new beginning. At the same time, we're having these new moons in all of those signs, right? Asking us to create new beginnings around the structures of family, care, community, and the woman's body. So what do we know and believe about all that, y'all? What do you know and believe about all of your own bodies? What do you know about your body, right? And what it is saying and how it is a location to help us figure out what it means to enact new stories. Because Venus being in the next to the new moon, right? It's going to have us really think about what we put our energy into when it comes to relationships. Again, what is our belief systems around that? How do we understand a relationship? Who taught you that? And is it true? And what are the ways the family, right, has become a location of understandings of relationships? And if that is the family is constructed through this kind of nuclear family, heteronormative Christian patriarchal lens, then that is going to influence our understandings of relationships, and not just romantic, y'all, all relationships of society, which then impacts and influences our economic systems, how we move and exchange our money, which will then influence and has a direct conversation with the ways in which we structure our justice systems. All of these different new moons are showing us the ways that the different locations of how we make a society, because those are the different locations that are breaking, right? The full moons that come in a conversation with these new moons show the illumination of those spots that are dissolving, right? Especially as they move toward and they have a conversation with Neptune. So these structures are dissolving. What are we building in its place? This goes back to faith. This is about spirit. Because when we think about where the new moon's ruler is, which is Cancer, what's in Cancer? Jupiter, right? The ruler of the sign of the new moon, right? The ruler of the moon itself is also in the sign that rules the new moon. A conversation is happening again between Jupiter and the moon. Alongside that, because Saturn is still in this trine with Jupiter, right? Saturn's part of this conversation. But where is Saturn? In Pisces. What is Pisces? The other sign that Jupiter rules. So Jupiter's doing some work here. Jupiter is doing some work. Mercury's been doing work, telling us about the crossroads, right, for this whole past year with these retrogrades and these various kind of also moon cycles in which Mercury has had a hard had led these conversations. I've been talking about this, leaving the last show, I talked about the crossroads, right? Mercury is having us understand that communication and choice is needed here. And then Jupiter being the most outer planet, right, is reminding us that this lays the foundations of everything. It is the structures of society. It is the foundations. It's law and order. And Mercury and Jupiter don't always have a good relationship. One is the teacher, one is the student, right? But regardless, we have to be both good teachers and students if we want to construct and create a new world. So even the fucking planets that don't necessarily get along are having to put their shit to the side because everyone knows and everything knows that right now the president is up for grabs. So who is grabbing it and what are we going to create with it? The cosmos is giving us permission to create something new, but what the fuck are we creating? We have to get clear about what we actually believe in. Who is your guru? Right? So let's go back to exhaustion. So I woke up today and I was like, okay, Nicole, I got to get on this live, right? I'm not trying to let things go. I want to be devoted, right, to the work that I'm doing because I enjoy it. But that can be really hard because there's a way that my devotion has always been framed through discipline, right? Through making sure I show up and just grinding it out. Even when I tell others that that is not sustainable, there is a way that my autopilot is just to keep hammering, keep going, keep doing. And a part of it's because the creativity is there now, right? So a part of me is a bit excited by this because now I am being creative. I don't feel the pressure like I used to being in higher ed of constantly producing for a certain population, right? So then my voice was limited, my writing style was heavily filtered. I wasn't able to be the poet that I can be. But that doesn't mean, though, that I was able to understand how to move that kind of energy into something that is sustainable. Because for me, exhaustion meant that I was doing something well. Again, like I said earlier. So then I got to write a new story, a new script to the energy, to the emotion. So how the fuck do I do that? Right? This is where the play and experimentation come in. This is where you're not going to know sometimes, y'all. And in the non-knowing is when, in the unknown, right, is where we can then build. It's where we can create new philosophies. It's where you can find your God, right? It's where you can find your God. We're being asked to find God right now. And I mean that. I actually really do mean that. This new moon in Sag and all this working going on with Jupiter ruled signs, right? Saturn is dissolving. Neptune is in the deep waters. The structures around authority and around faith are crumbling. What are we building in its place? Because there will be something that will come into it, y'all. Just because there's a void does not mean that somehow we can put our hands up and say that's the work. That is not the work. That is step one. And you might be like, well, shit, it's taken us this long to get to step one. Yes. This is why exhaustion matters right now, because can we listen to our bodies to understand what we need for sustainability, right? So ease, me doing this working, 31 days. If you're in the Patreon, y'all will be doing a 31-day working next month. I'm just doing it for me first to make sure I know this is going to work. And it's working, all right? It's working. Is what we need because it will help us understand exhaustion, right? The emotions that we call in many times because we are exhausted or we have fed up, you have no idea what to do next, are the things we need to help us, right? But it can be a complete mind fuck. It can be a complete different shift in what we understand our emotions to be. Because this is us finding our God, us hearing ourselves, us calling up and in the higher self. There's a lot of muck there, right? A lot of things that have to be dissolved. A lot of things that are counter, right, to what we have been told is the right thing to do. Right now, this energy is saying, do we want to be right? Because right requires you buying into a structure of governance that means you got to give your authority up to it, not believe you in the present, but beholden to its understanding of time via a past it constructs or a future it's promising, right? But again, never present, right? Do we believe in that, or do we construct a new God? Do we understand that that is what has created us bounded to a system that consistently shits in our face, right? That consistently tells us they don't like us, but then wants more from us, and we keep giving it up. We keep saying, well, this is all that there is. What else can we do? Well, what we can do is believe the fucking reality we are in. Sagittarius energy right now, right, is saying, along with Pisces, is saying that things are broken. What are we building? But do we believe? So I want you to think about the Pisces and Sag houses for you in your chart, okay? Those Pisces and Sag houses for you, and the ways that systems of belief have come in and shaped those houses for you. So for me, it's my second and fifth house. Sagittarius rules the second house, Pisces rules the fifth house, right? And if I think about Jupiter, and Jupiter for me is in my 12th house in Libra. So my understandings of relationships and justice and the like, right? How those have influenced my understandings of second house things, which is going to be money, value, self-worth, where my Neptune actually is. So that's where I can be a little delulu. And then my fifth house is Pisces, which is childhood, childlike things, pleasure, hobbies, sex, dating, and the like. It is where we can find our joy, right? It took me a long time to find either one of those, y'all, because my faith system was rooted in the goddamn Catholic Church that had told me that suffering was the way in which we can live. That said it was about sacrifice, right, of you in favor of the greater good. And even when I left that church, I replaced that church with another one. It was called higher education. That's where my Cancer house is. Ninth house, Cancer, with my Mars. So dogma is here. There is a way where if you have a Mars in the ninth house, no matter what sign it is, you can really accidentally be very beholden to dogma. You can be the dogma in yourself because you believe, you put faith in and passion into that faith. But you got to ask yourselves, whose faith is it? This is about God. It's about God. Because the way we understand God will then dictate how we understand ourselves, and then the values about ourselves, and how we place those values in the structures of society amongst other selves. So for me, there is a way that having to reevaluate my worth and value, and then my ideas of sex and hobbies and pleasure and the like, right, meant that I have to break my relationship with the ways in which God has been taught to me. So I want you to think about that, because that's what we're being asked to do. Every society, when we're world building, y'all, has mythos, right? Has an origin story. That is where the sacred comes in. Even if you don't believe in some external God or however that is constructed, you got to believe in something. There's got to be an origin to it. So we're being asked to reconstruct the origin stories of our faith systems. So we have to figure out what we have faith in and why. So how do we find it? Well, this is where I say you find God in the taboo spaces. You find God in the dark because it's in the dark, the places that we are told not to go, to not question, to not get curious about, to not engage with, because then you might actually find your God. I went to my first play party, y'all, a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if I talked about this or not. A few weeks ago, actually. And it was really interesting. I'm going to talk more about this at the Queer and Chaos conversation that's going to be held December 16th, this Tuesday at Dorothy Downstairs. We're going to be talking about queering, pleasure, play, and taboo things. And I'm having a conversation, Forrest and I, with a business partner who runs this kink party called Handball, along with a Black queer woman, Tony Bush, who runs psychedelic mushroom education for especially Black queer folks, and then a mother and child duo who run Witchorama, which is a monthly witch market and drag show, right? So I do field research. So I needed to see. I had never been to a kink party before or a play party. So when I was talking with Aaron and Josh, Forrest and I, Josh and Logan. Logan had was like, well, listen, we got a party coming up. Why don't I'll give you a ticket. You can come and check it out. And I said, okay, cool, And this is a play party, and so they are a kink party that is called Handball because it's a fisting party. Now, again, I've never been to any kind of play party, so I didn't realize that there was different levels to this shit. And I'm realizing that I jumped in the deep end. I jumped in. I skipped levels 1 through 3 and went right into went right into the deep end. And I'm really glad I did. I learned a shit ton there, y'all. I learned a shit ton. I actually really enjoyed myself. I didn't play. I wasn't planning on playing. I didn't feel good anyway. I mean, I was on my cycle, so I wasn't playing with nobody. Period. But I really was interested in what the setting would be. Because a lot of my ex-lovers, the last 2 ex-lovers I had, said they were in kink. And so I was, kind of experimenting and seeing, do I like this or not? And with them, after 2 months with both of them at different times, I realized I didn't. Like there was something that didn't feel right. And so I had to believe my body, right? And that was really hard for me because when I feel as if I'm new to something, I try to tell myself to be as open minded as possible and not be judgmental, and Nicole, you're doing too much. Sometimes we have to stop that because it really is in the doing too much that our inner self is trying to talk to us, right? And I'm glad I was doing too much and I cut it off of both of them, my ex lovers, because I was right for me. I was right for me. Being in that space, it was great. I learned so much. I understood what consent was. Like I'm seeing people have conversations, there's a negotiation happening. I realized I am a complete fucking dork because I stood there and people were talking to me and I'm having all these conversations. I'm fascinated. I'm like, asking them how they got into it and their interests. And I asked the bartender about what love meant to him. And that was a great conversation, honestly. And he poured me a stiff ass drink after that. And talking to Aaron, the other person that runs it, Aaron was like, I didn't realize it. And he was so cute. He was so cute. He was like, I didn't realize it, but we do have a lot of intention in how we set this up because I had asked him to be in the panel. So he was like, I was thinking a lot about as we were setting up today, why we do this, because the first 2 hours of the party were exclusively for women, femmes, trans and non-binary folks, right? It was queer. So to ensure that folks, even within the queer community who tend to be marginalized in these spaces, had a designated space just for us. And that's what made it also really comfortable. I walked in, it wasn't a whole lot of people, but it was an intentionally curated space. And when you intentionally curate a space with people who are actually wanting to be there, participate, and be curious, it's amazing. Right. And in doing that, I realized something in the hold on. And the music, y'all, the fucking music was so goddamn good. The music was so good. So good. Right. And so it's a space because it was intentional. There's an intentionality with all of it. And it really got me thinking as I'm processing it, as we're leading up to the panel on Tuesday, is it really is in the taboo spaces that we can gain clarity. And it was me being in that play party that truly helped me understand that this is not for me. And I was completely grateful for it. Completely grateful, completely grateful. And I think I probably talked about this last show. So if I have, forgive me, y'all. But I'm reflecting upon it more now as part of this idea of faith systems and beliefs, right? And God and where we find God. And when I think about that play party and spaces that are considered taboo, that are considered in the dark, people are allowing themselves to express themselves in places that can hold it, but that also have safeguards to it, right? So then, if we took that template and brought it out and made it foundational to how we learned how to be human, y'all, how we learned our understandings of faith in God, then what the hell worlds could we build, right? How much could we actually have diversity of individuals, of selves, right, who are expressive? What kind of art would be created? What kind of thought would be constructed if we brought the taboo into the light? And then what kind of monster would not be fucking created? Let's talk about the Diddy conversation, the Diddy documentary. I've been watching that too as I was, as been laying out in bed this week more than normal. And so I started the Diddy documentary and I was a little hesitant to do it, I'll be honest. Very hesitant, actually. I don't care for 50 Cent. And regardless of the intention, this all feels like a way to still weaponize victims for men's fodder. It does. Right? And I watched the documentary and I have a lot of thoughts. I was disturbed for a number of different reasons, not just because of the content, okay? And a lot of that shit, if you grew up in the 90s and 2000s, we knew. That's what was pissing me off the most, right? Presenting this information from a man who himself has been accused of absolute violence, especially toward women, and being a complete bully, right? Being a complete bully and a fucking deadbeat dad. Want to talk about somebody else, right? There was a way that it was infuriating because people were speaking out about this shit back in the day. And I remember talking about this in the show a while ago when the allegations first came out, and that was an irritation. Then it's like he's always been like this, and it was glorified. Society said that this is what success meant, right? Those fucking reality shows of the early 2000s, and I loved me a reality show, y'all. I auditioned to be on some random ones, Amazing Race and other random ones. It was a time, right? It was a time in the kind of pop lexicon. But even with that, people were pushing back. People were pushing back against the blatant sexism, right? The ways that he was always known to not pay his folks, just like Trump. But folks thought that was cute. People were like, well, that's how you be a good, successful man is fucking somebody else over. Do you understand when we don't have strong relationships and understand how to maintain them, we think a good business relationship one is if I fuck you over. That is why this shit matters, y'all, because it gets justified. And then that is how we allow abuse to be basically contained and reproduced in the public until it explodes, right? Until it explodes because it's not containable. So that Diddy documentary is a big example of what happens when we weaponize shame, when we allow homophobia to maintain itself in society as somehow the worst thing you could be. Not that you be a pedophile, not that you be an abuser, right? Not that you be somebody who has literally stolen from all kinds of folks. No, no, no. Be gay. Be gay. And being called gay, being gay, and all of the things in between is so heinous that people, even if they do come out, are told that they are the problem, that they are the reason why they were abused. Okay. And if it's not the homophobia, right, the misogyny is so bad. And we hate children so much. We hate children so much that when young folks, men and women, girls and boys, come out and talk about their violence, well, you're just being fast if you were a girl, and if you were a boy, oh, well, that's just a rite of passage. Now you're a man, right? Taboo things. So faith and God dictates then what is and is not allowed to be tackled in society. And when your God is one who is a vengeful God, when your God is one who is a jealous God, when your God is one who will harden the heart of a Pharaoh, while then telling your prophet to free your people, but that he makes it impossible for those people to be freed without more violence. If that is your God, right? Then of course your hero will be a monster until the monster can no longer hide. And then you have to use him as a scapegoat, right? So it can just be this last time. You it's a location for us to somehow forget to absolve ourselves once again. Absolution is here. So who is the God that you pray to? Because that will then dictate how you face your oppressor, how you believe your oppressor, how you handle your oppressor. Let's talk about Jasmine Crockett. Right now online, there's another circle jerk conversation going on, okay? And this actually aligns very well with the astrology, and especially around Jupiter and philosophy and belief, okay? Because Jasmine is putting her name in the primaries for the Senate seat in Texas, and it's going up against another Democrat, right? White man. And the discourse online is it's like a rinse and repeat. We've learned nothing. It's a rinse and repeat from Kamala. It truly is. And people are using Israel and Gaza as the litmus test and making all of these moral high grounds arguments about why you cannot vote for Jasmine at all, or I don't know anyone who's the established Dems because they're all pro-Zionists. And that's where the conversation stops and starts. I'm going to say this, and I'm saying this as looking at the astrology and what even the stars are asking us to do. People need to grow the fuck up right now. And I really do mean that. I really do. Like, I don't understand. I do, but I don't. We are seeing the ways folks are clinging to the old structures, but thinking it is so radical. What is the strategy? Some of y'all just found out where Israel was 2 years ago. And I fucking mean that. Some of you just found out where Israel was. And now you barely know where Gaza is. Okay? You are figuring out that you live in an imperial core. You are understanding the monster, the violent succubus that the American empire state is. I'm glad. That knowing is only step one. Just like I said earlier, the kind of breaking and the ways that we are seeing structures crumble is just step one. It is not the work. It is step one of the work. But when your God, let's go back to God. When your God is one that tells you that if you eat the fruit from this tree and gain knowledge that you have now committed the most egregious sin, then why the fuck would you actually question? Your questioning becomes the issue. Your questioning makes you the villain versus the examination of why you cannot even question from a so-called entity that's supposed to be omnipotent. If you big and bad, God, then why can't we know something? If I am made in your image, if we are made in the image of God, right? But that God is one who's a jealous God, who's a spiteful God, who wants you ignorant and beholden to him. Well, then what will it make his children? New moon and Sag, we got to find new gods, y'all. So we got to find new stories. We got to find new myths. You got to find the God in you. Let's go back to Jasmine. So now people are saying, you cannot, we have to stand for something. You have to stand for something, right? Yes, let's stand for something. What the fuck do you stand for? Because do you believe you're oppressor? You live in the imperial core. Now you know. Now you know. All that theory in practice is coming to light. The veil has been lifted. The boy said it in 1903. And now here we are in 2025, having the veils continuously lifted. But yet, what actions have been taken that are different than what was done from that 1903 time, right? Well, the subjugation of all, right, is what allows our subjugation to be here. All of the quotes that people love to throw out, the awakening of the dead to keep your moral high ground. How dare you vote for someone who is not pure politic, even though we live in an impure political system, right? And then when you say that, when you start to question, when you ask, okay, well, then what is the strategy? What comes next? You don't vote, but somebody still has to maintain that power seat. Somebody still has to move that money. Somebody still has to be in charge of those resources. What is the plan? That is not their responsibility. They throw up their hands. They say, oh, well, all you're doing is trying to derail the conversation. No, I'm trying to move it somewhere. But if you think that the thought is the action, but then somebody is actually asking you to put something into action, you now feel as if you are being oppressed. You have moved the oppressor from the actual state to the person that is questioning and getting you to find the fucking God in you, to find you. The questions are asking you to get responsibility for the new worlds we are building. Don't know, Jasmine. I'm not in Texas. And I don't have any faith in a lot of politicians, quite frankly, do a goddamn thing unless you literally put pressure on them, unless they feel as if their job, their reputation, their ability to maintain their power will truly be taken away. You got to put the fear back onto the state instead of having the state have us digest its fear and keep us beholden and stagnant in these rigid binary ways. If you believe you're oppressed, then you understand that the ways that God has been infiltrated into the everyday. I don't care if you're an atheist or not. Some of these atheists, some of these kind of so-called radical leftists that are only radical online are nothing more than the Janus face of an evangelical, right? An evangelical who has decided to be mad at its father. So it wants to turn around and away from God, even though it has held on to nothing but dogma, nothing but a binary way of thinking, nothing but a righteousness, right? Rooted in their absorption of how they are a part of the issue to begin with. Grow the fuck up. We all have to grow up right now and take responsibility. You cannot say that is the problem, but then say, I want nothing to do with the solution. Because me naming the problem is somehow doing the work itself. That is nothing more than somebody who does not want to eat from the tree of knowledge because you have bought into what daddy says. And daddy says, don't question. Make it easy, black and white, yes or no. Well, we don't believe in and support a genocide. So where the fuck have y'all been for the past 400 fucking years then? Screw it. Where have people been for the past 20? We can go short history too. We've had Standing Rock happen in 2016. Folks were getting hosed down with water hoses in freezing temperatures, all because Native folks said that we have the ability to exist. We have the ability to exist. We have the right to exist. They're sovereign nation. Black folks just said, don't shoot us. We should be able to exist, to walk around, to be able to enact the same rights that we are told we are supposed to have as so-called U.S. citizens. That is supposedly makes us somewhat human to these systems, right? But no, not like that. So where were y'all then? Oh, some of y'all were having your moment online with your black boxes. The performance of doing something, right? When we were locked down and so you needed to get out, that became the cause that gave you the excuse to go ahead and protest back against the violent state. But then as soon as lockdowns opened, right? As soon as there was a cause that you felt morally superior to, you doubled down and said, well, everyone should just eat it because I now feel as if I know what is right. And my being right is more important than your fucking life. What is the strategy? And don't say that I'm saying vote blue no matter who. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, do you know who your oppressor is? Do you know who is the person or people that you can go in and disrupt them and have them move that kind of needle? And if that's not the work you want to do, then what else are you doing? How are you bringing folks together? How are you congregating? How are you communing? What is the faith? What is the foundation of the societies and worlds you say you want to live in? Because a lot of y'all just weaponize these languages, these understandings of justice, because we don't even know what justice is. Because justice is depending upon the ways in which you understand God. This is why Jupiter rules law and order, not Saturn, right? Saturn is structures. Saturn is systems and structures of governance. Jupiter is law and order because it's about faith. It's about systems. It's about God and your faith in said God. So we live in a Christian fascist state that is crumbling, dissolving. Neptune, 29 degrees in Pisces before we hit that conjunction in February. I'm going to talk about that at the end of this year. more next year, kind of giving an overview. Because again, we're having these it's a new beginning, but it's not quick. It's Neptune, right? It's Neptune is an outer planet. It's long standing. So we're going to start to see the complete dissolving, really, February, a slow dissolving of eroding of faith, an eroding of faith in these systems, an eroding of faith in these authority figures. But here's the thing, y'all. If people still only understand, right, being led by somebody, then even as these leaders fall, there will be new leaders rising. It's going to be this way. So this is why it's important to understand what your faith lies in by owning your own head. Where is God in you? And you can find God in the taboo. You can find God by facing the shame. You can find God by working with the different medicines that this earth has provided for us, right? This is why I'm talking about shrooms. Forrest and I talk about shrooms a lot in general, but it's been something that's been really helpful for me the past year, especially working with the plant, working with shrooms, and be as a way for me to get fully in my body. Now, shrooms, depending upon the strain, right, and how you take it, works differently for everybody. But this is the one thing that everyone I've talked to who engages with the plant says, that every trip is the trip that you need. There's no bad trips. It's what you needed to go through. Okay. And a lot of times when I take shrooms, y'all, when I do take them, they put me so far in my body. It is the weirdest experience. Like I was expecting, right? So my first time I took them, I was a little nervous and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to see things and like, like the kind of 70s shows and shit. So I was expecting all of that. I got none of that. You know what I got? I got, I was like, wow, I'm tall. Was so in my body. Looked in the mirror and I was like, bitch, your head is above it. Like that's when I finally realized why my back hurts, because I kept bending down to see myself in the mirror. I wasn't even standing up straight. Like the shrooms put me in my body, right? And then my body started talking. And then I was like, well, shit, then this is great. This is great. Then what happens like if we can actually work with these things? Why is this seen as so taboo? As somehow you're going to go into some dark night of the soul that you'll never come out of. You might go into a dark night of the soul, but that's because your soul is asking you to find it. You have to go through that darkness. You have to wade through the waters of everything else that has been put upon you, right? The ways that we have allowed that God external to us to have a little bit too much space internally in us. So when we get to the taboo places and spaces, when we face shame, y'all, when we can ask the deeper questions, the questions that we have been told not to ask because you doing too much or you too fast or, you're disruptive, disrupt. If I say if you're going to disrupt, be a good disruptor. Break the fucking table. That's what we're being asked to do, dissolve. The taboo spaces and places can allow you to figure out then what is God. This is what I'm talking to Tony as part of the Queer and Chaos, right? We talk about kink and the ways that kink and the kind of processes that folks engage with when it comes to consent and also bodies. It was really cool seeing so many different bodies in a space that is made about pleasing the body, right? In different states of dress and realizing that the human body is beautiful in all kinds of different ways. This aesthetic that we're given, that the body has to be skinny and hard and perfectly contorted. Who does that benefit, and is that actually even attractive? You know what I mean? Like I want me a little stomach. You know what I'm saying? Like I want to be able to see somebody who is just flowing in their body no matter what kind of way it is. And so these spaces of taboo can actually where we find our beauty, because it's no longer taboo to be in your body. You can just fully be embodied. And that's what shrooms is, another place of embodiment. So Tony's work I'm really excited for and excited by, because we do need more, especially Black queer folks who are educating and taking the plant seriously. And that's what she does. She's makes curriculum and helps people understand different strains of not just shrooms but also marijuana. And marijuana, right, weed is a drug that has been heavily kind of manipulated and it's a contentious plant, right, for many of us. It is a plant that many folks, especially in the Black community, have engaged with, have made income off of, right, but have also has been used against many folks to create a prisoner pipeline, right? Kind of structure and system. So the plant then becomes justification for the state to come in and continue to subjugate. But now that it is seen as a commodity, as a moneymaker, and white folks can essentially, white bros, honestly, can come in and legitimate it, we are seeing another way that the plan is being used once again for capitalist gains. It's been manipulated. It's been completely contorted. You can get all these strains that are making it higher and higher THC, and then the different types of kind of things that are made from it to get you higher and higher. But we've lost the connection to the plant. It's not to be consumed, it's to be worked with. So what does it look like for us to take our relationship back to other forms of life? This is about your relationship to God then. What does your God say about your relationship to other forms of life? That Christian patriarchal God said that you are here to be over life, but that makes no sense. That makes no sense when you think about it, because other structures and systems and origin stories talk about the relationship we have with the environment. So your God will dictate your relationships overall and how you understand what it means to relate to someone or something else. And if you think you are dominant, if you think you're supposed to be dominant over, right? This is why you get these ridiculous ass conversations about the alpha man. And I saw something. God damn, these people I think are lonely because these questions. Because if these are the questions that y'all are having in these heterosexual dating pools, I'm sorry. I really am. Because they were like, somebody asked if it's appropriate to take a doggy bag after the first date, or would that be seen as would that be seen as uncouth or some shit? And I said, it's food. Y'all are really out here performing so much these roles, right, of man and woman, that even if you go out to eat, you are having to eat ahead of time so that you don't be seen as being too hungry, therefore seen as greedy. If you can't finish your place, you take some home. What sense does this make, y'all? What sense does this make? Right? But it makes a lot of sense, again, if the system that you have been placed your faith upon and that you understand relationships through, that you even understand your sense of self and your body is nothing but a taboo. If it says that anything that you feel, right, any kind of pleasure is a sin, well, then you got to perform and perform and perform over and over again. Aren't we tired of it? Do those scripts even matter? I mean, do they even work? The new moon in Sag, right, next to Venus, but also on the other side of Mars, it's going to get personal. It's your personal relationship to your God, to your belief systems, to your understandings of relationships, to your fire, and then to your action. Mars in Capricorn is exalted. Okay, Mars can go to work in the sign that is ruled by Saturn, that is loyal, that understands what is required to bring things into reality. Capricorn is a sign that when it is grounded, is beautiful. It really is. I really do think it is. It's earth, it's material, it can be a little cold sometimes, but it's only because it cares when it does care. So we're being asked to reevaluate our gods, but also what we're going to do to put into action. We get tired now because Mars and Neptune are in this tension, in this conversation. You got to break from reality, the delusions, right? You got to figure out what your reality is. So there is a breaking, there is a dissolving, there is a re-examination of the stories we tell ourselves, right? I told myself a story that my exhaustion was just a byproduct of me having to essentially remake a life. While that may be true, I was not listening to that exhaustion because I didn't know what to do with it. I had to find a new God. So I had to find my God. I had to find me. And I've been finding my God, right, in the dark, in the taboo spaces, as I've been saying on my socials, right? It's the offerings I've been laying as my ass shakes on the dance floor to get all this shit out of me. The shrooms brought me back into my body. The music is what's allowing me to move that body in a different way, conjuring a new understanding of what God is, because I'm finally bringing the God out of me, the higher self. So what would it look like, y'all, to listen to you? To call down your God, to call down yourself. Well, that calling down many times is a going through, again, that taboo. And I think a lot about with Torama here. This is the third group that's going to be part of the Queer and Chaos conversation with Mama Sweets and the Dom, mother and child duo. And as a mom, again, to a young queer kid who is very much growing up free, which I'm happy for, right? It's not easy because seeing their freedom reminds me so much of how unfree I was, right? And other friends too, when they listen to their kids and see how free their kids are finally being able to be. And we talk about, the kind of dual-edged sword of understanding, trying to do shit better, working through your own shit, raising a kid to not replicate your same shit. It can be a mind fuck. It really can, while also being a beautiful thing. And so Mama Sweets, Erica, when I talked with her, it was a really cool story of a mother who understood her child, was not trying to mother in the ways that society said we're supposed to mother, but understood that as a mother to a person, right? The job is to mother that person. But can you see the person? Can you see the person that if you birth them, right? Do you see them independent of you? If you do not have your own children, but you see children running around, do you understand them as an independent person? Or do you see them as an offspring of somebody else's property or problem? So when Mama Sweets realized that her child at 18 wanted to explore their performance, their sense of self through drag, but didn't really have a spot, didn't have a house to do so in, she created one with her and her husband's work as witches, as brujas, right? Themselves already working in a industry, in a discipline essentially that is taboo to begin with, right? Could have easily doubled down and tried to still maintain some sense of quote unquote normalcy, but instead opened up the space and created a platform for her child and their friends to experiment and play and drag. And now again, they have their own drag show. And they do monthly. It's a monthly witch market and drag show in Chicago. And and for me, like it is a beautiful tale. It's a beautiful template of what it means, right, to believe your reality and operate accordingly from there, unapologetically. Having faith in what makes sense for you, going into the taboo and finding your light, finding your God. This is why I talk about queering chaos so much. This is the project I'm doing now, right? Because we have to queer the ways that we understand the everyday. It's not just about your sexuality. Shit. You can be gay and be hetero as shit. Believe me, I've ran into plenty queer folks, gay folks in the city who I might as well be back in my hetero life the way they engage and act. And that's not for me. I don't want it. I live that story. You know what I'm saying? Like, shit, I practice what I preach. I ain't got to go back. I believe that fucking lesson, right? So when we don't allow ourselves to even play, when we're still trying to contort and conform ourselves to a structure that is dissolving, that is dying, right? We will be dying then too. You will become the walking dead. You have given yourself of an offering to a succubus energy that is decaying. Even vampires cannot eat off the dead. They must eat off living. Even as they are dead, they must have life to suck off of. Right? So don't suck off death, suck off life. And if the structures around us are dying because that God's message no longer makes sense because everything's dissolving, you must remember that God is still good at maintaining itself in a different font. So that space is open. What are you filling it with? Go into your taboo. Go into the darkness. Go into and question the things that you are told to just take as is. Break all of it because it is dissolving. And Mars and Capricorn will give us the energy, will give us the ability to strategize, right? Differently, but asking ourselves what we're loyal to. And again, Capricorn is ruled by what? Saturn. Here we go. Water is still here. Pisces, because Saturn's in Pisces, that is ruled by Jupiter. The mothers are here. The waters are loud, y'all. Waters are loud. Again, it's where memory lies, where the dead reside. It's where we are birthed from and through. The waters are the lungs of the earth, right? The trees, yes, provide oxygen, they filter it, but the lungs are what actually give us breath. And the only reason why we are here is that mother, that love of water is so strong, even as we completely disrespect her, right? She's still willing to give us breath. But honestly, for how long? Because we have a responsibility to her as well. It's not just a one-way exchange. It has to be reciprocal in nature. So again, if our understanding of God makes it so that God tells us that we are above something, that we have no responsibility to it, do we understand why we now have an environmental crisis that we do? And why they're pushing these fucking AI centers that are nothing more than Ponzi schemes to continuously extract money from the state, because they are the welfare, right? These big corporations and folks in power are nothing more than welfare kings and queens themselves, but they have to project upon to us, right? We wouldn't be getting this kind of push at the innovation of the future is one that is dystopian and will literally cut off life. Well, if your God is the foundation of that understanding, because he himself is a jealous God, right? He himself told you are above other forms of life. Well, then here we go. This is what we are doing. We are being shown the future if we keep a holding to these structures of not just governance, but of spirit. So God's here, y'all, whether you want to admit it or not. And it's not about whether you believe. It truly isn't. Whether you believe there is a God or not. God exists. God exists because the concept itself is one that is foundational to the maintenance of the current colonial structures that we are in. Okay, this colonial project was a spiritual warfare off the bat. I've always said this. So spirit is here. And now we are up for reevaluation 250 years later. Pluto's in Aquarius, but Pluto's is at early degrees. Pluto in the early degrees of a sign is the death part of it. You can't jump steps, y'all. Everybody wants to try to jump to these restorative and transformative systems of governance and care. How are you going to go there when you don't even understand how to care for one another right now? You will just take what you know and replicate it somewhere else. That is nothing more than a binary system. In order for us to get to the transformative, we're going to have to sit in some kind of righteous. There is going to be a dirt. There's going to be honestly some pain, but the pain is going to be one in the removing, the exorcism, the exorcising of our relationship to these current structures, which means parts of you are going to have to die. The version of you that held on to, that was a part of, that actually sustained these structures. You're going to have to kill, or we're going to have to release or let go of that version of you that believed in that God. Because that's what's going to make space for your God to come down, your higher self, what we call your Ori. All right. All right, I'm going to stop there, y'all. I got a lot more to say, actually. I do have a lot more to say, but I'm going to leave it for next week. We have the solstice coming up next week. All right, and I think that's a really good time to kind of review or evaluate the last 6 months, but also to really think about what, if you're in the northern hemisphere, because we're going into winter, what it is that not only needs to kind of decay a bit, but also in the rest. What are you being able to kind of work through and work on in the dark? Right, in the darkness, as night gets longer, but then it will then eventually get shorter. So the night will slowly get shorter. How do we kind of work through and work on and be loyal to? Because Capricorn's a loyal energy. It's the dirt, right? It is the ground, and it's the earth itself. What's the ground that we're tilling, right? What are we playing? What are we preparing ourselves, right, to be able to bring to light in this Aries season? And so it's a good time to reflect. So I'm going to talk about that. And in doing so, I want to talk a bit more about Capricorn and this kind of Capricorn stellium that's going to happen. And then also give some updates on what my schedule will look like, because I am going to take some time off. Like I said, I won't be doing weekly for the next month. I'll most likely be going bi-weekly, as I'm tinkering with some things as well. And if you're in the Patreon, y'all, we will be doing a guided meditation. I have been playing with this and it's worked. So if you're at the soundscape level and higher, our divination study session this month, we're going to do one this month, okay? It's going to be a guided meditation on meeting your Ori. All right, I've done this with a few different folks in different groups, and it seems to have worked. So part of this new moon in Sag energy really is working with your spirit, with your sense of self. And so I will have on the Patreon the date. It'll be, if it's not going to be Sunday evening next week, it'll be sometime early next week, in which we will be working with the energy of the solstice, the new moon that just passed. It's going to be Saturday, guided meditation of coming to and meeting your Ori. Okay. So we're going to be doing that. And if you're in the Chicagoland area, December 16th, again, is my next Queering Chaos conversation. We're going to be queering pleasure, play, and taboo things. Because again, it's in the taboo spaces that we can find our light, find our God, find the ways that we can figure out how the world built. This is origin story and origin making. And so I'll be joined again by folks who run King Party, work with shrooms, and also work with drag and brujeria as a way to create spaces of community that folks can allow themselves to be fully human. All right. Okay, y'all. This was a little different. I didn't do my intro. I'm just flowing with the energy that I got. So I appreciate y'all's attention. I appreciate y'all's support. And be on the lookout on the Patreon as well. I am writing my book right now, so I have a few voice notes that I've been doing. So if you are interested in the behind the scenes look of my book, I will be having as part of the materials in December and January, as I'm doing some more downtime, there will be materials up, but it will be kind of notes from different chapters of my book. So if you are interested in what I'm writing about, because I'm writing about higher ed, I didn't talk about it here, but it's also very bittersweet right now. If you didn't hear, there's an active shooter at Brown University as of yesterday. 2 people are dead, and a number of people are injured. And I have a lot of a lot of fucking feelings about this, right? As all of us should. But as having worked at that campus, right, and knowing exactly that intersection, it comes back to this idea of what we've allowed. We've allowed this. I'm old enough to remember Columbine. A lot of us are if you're my age, right? And waking up to a TV and being told that kids at a college, kids at a high school were shot. And seeing that, like seeing the pain, hearing them, and then listening as the nation, a national rhetoric emerges that is doubling down on people having the right to bear arms. I want you to listen to the message, the right to bear arms, the right, to defend themselves, this defense thing. And when that violence turns on itself, they have to move the story. They have to constantly get us to be in our heads, to tell us that thoughts and prayers are going to lead to action, but it leads to no action except for a doubling down in the ability for folks to have the right to enact said violence. And here we are in 2025. It's like every other fucking week we get another news report about a shooting, right? We get told once again that we can do nothing. Nothing can be done except to watch the decay and the violence. And then we wonder why our students, our kids are apathetic because they don't know where the fuck they can go and not be met with the onslaught of violence. Hyper visible and invisible at the same time. This is what we do when we allow ourselves to be beholden to a God, okay? That is over and over again in that book that they call the Bible, shown as nothing but a spiteful and violent and, quite frankly, uncontrollable entity that if you don't do exactly as he says, he will ensure that you and your bloodline suffer the consequences. So, of course, this is what we are seeing in the present day. Right. And so this is an education, like in education becomes a target. Why? Because education is a location that maintains the state. This is why it's also frustrating that they bent the fucking knee. This is also another reason why it is frustrating that higher ed bent the knee to that state, because the state doesn't give a fuck. That president literally tweeted out wrong information saying that they had the shooter in custody and they didn't. Right? There is no real engagement with them. But when that goddamn white man was shot in the neck, we had to have a whole ass national mourning and reckoning and this kind of resurrection. Why? Because they needed a new God. They even know their God is dying. The state even knows its God is dying, so it's been trying to give us and prop up a new one. And guess what is it? A mediocre white man once again. So truly, my heart goes out to folks at the university But we have to still go do something more than thoughts and prayers, because thoughts and prayers don't mean shit without action. They mean nothing without action. So what is the action that we are having to take now, y'all? Individually and collectively, locally and nationally. It goes beyond just saying that somebody is Zionist, so therefore you cannot do it. The whole fucking state is Zionist, y'all. And we are not the only nation state that has an issue that is a part of this too. Do you know where those IDF soldiers go when they need to recoup from doing all that violence? They go to places like India and Thailand, right? There's whole kind of communities that are setting up shop in Antigua, Guatemala. Other nation states are also aiding and abetting in the violence of that fucking state. So we have got to grow up and ask ourselves, what are the worlds we are creating? And the only way we can create new worlds is taking the goddamn resources to do so. So what resources do we need in order to be able to have the power structures that are required for us to create new worlds? Those are the questions that we have to ask, y'all. So we need a new God. We need a new God. We need new gods. We need new origin stories and foundations. Otherwise, we're going to be thoughting and praying ourselves into our own damnation. All right? So let me know what this new moon in Sag brings up for you on Saturday. And I'll be back next Sunday, y'all. And again, if you're in Chicago, come out and see me. And if you want more, go on the Patreon, y'all. I'll have updates on the Patreon and on my YouTube, okay? So as always, keep dreaming, keep exploring, because it's through the dreamscapes we can say the futures we want to bring into the present. Till next time. One hand to heaven, the other pointed straight to hell. Right hand as strong as the left, dancing in the shadows with myself and the dead. The shadows on the walls, a mirror to the self. Why stay stagnant and allow the flames to consume you? Dance with them and conjure under the new moon. One hand to heaven, the other a guide to the other side where the dead reside. You gotta use both hands and feel your feet if you wanna defeat the demons masquerading as human.
Wondering, scratch that wondering, trying to find a meaning to it all. Morning is coming, but I ain't running. I'm just dancing with the shadows on the wall. To get to heaven, I went through hell, and now I see it all for what it is. Battling demons to fight for freedom, but surrender is the only way to win. Shadow dancing, playing with the light in the dark. Shadow dancing, playing with the light in the dark.
Justice for the dead, life for the living. What is key is we need to sing a song of freedom from tyranny. One hand to heaven, the other conjuring the dead, who know the songs and actions of freedom that are needed for us in the times ahead.
Fear and rage, define the age, and everybody's hiding from the truth. Stuck together, but all alone, and haunted by the shadows in the room. But that's tomorrow's and yesterdays, racing to leave something behind. The end is really the beginning.
trunk of a tree, strong, sturdy, weather-bearing. Offerings laid, prayers are made. Now, for the summoning. Dance with the shadows, songs erupting as lips and hips move to the drumming. One hand to heaven, the other on the other side. Justice for the living requires justice for those on the other side. Pointed straight to hell. Right hand as strong as the left. Dancing in the shadows with myself and the dead. The shadows on the walls, a mirror to the self. Why stay stagnant and allow the flames to consume you? Dance with them and conjure under the new moon. One hand to heaven, the other a guide to the other side where our dead reside. Hear the ancestors call out. You gotta use both hands and feel your feet if you wanna defeat the demons masquerading as humans. Cause we've been here before. Time a loop of remembering and forgetting to remember once again. Of times before those shadows of former selves. One hand to heaven, the other to the past. That brought a present, a shell of the self. One hand to heaven, call down your head and dance in the light of self-knowing. The other hand extends down to the land, a remembrance, a signal to awaken the dead and rise up in glory. Hallelujah! Say their names and watch the shadows dance among the flames. Righteous justice, Libra, fully balanced.